I didn't mean to stay that late at her place. It was supposed to be a quick visit, drop off a borrowed toolbox, maybe share a cup of tea if she insisted. But somehow, the rain kept getting heavier, and her kitchen light felt too warm to leave behind. The clock on the wall ticked loud enough to fill the pauses between us. She was standing by the counter, hair tied up in a messy bun, a few silver strands catching the light like threads of quiet defiance. My cousin, technically, but not by blood. Her mother married into my uncle's family years ago, and that word cousin had always felt like a label for something that didn't quite fit. "You've grown quieter," she said, stirring her tea. "College life not what you imagined." I shrugged, running a hand through my damp hair. "It's fine. Just loud." She smiled without looking up. "You were always the quiet one." It wasn't a compliment or a judgment. Just something she noticed, the way people like her did. The kind who saw things others missed. The kind who remembered how you used to sit at the edge of family dinners, pretending not to listen. I watched her move around the kitchen, measured, unhurried, confident in that way older people are when they've stopped trying to impress anyone. There was something grounding about it. She didn't ask too many questions, didn't fill the air with advice. Just the sound of the rain, the spoon against her mug, and that faint scent of chamomile and sawdust from the wooden counter. When she finally looked up, our eyes met longer than they should have. Maybe half a second too long, but long enough for something to flicker, then vanish, like a reflection on water. She turned away first. "You're soaked. I'll get you a towel." I told her I'd grab one myself, but she was already walking toward the hall closet. Her socks made a soft sound on the wooden floor, a small, human sound that felt louder than the storm outside. When she handed me the towel, her fingers brushed mine. It wasn't deliberate, just one of those things that happen when space is small and people are close. But something about it, the warmth, the steadiness, made the air shift. I tried to laugh it off. "Guess I should have checked the forecast." "Guess so," she said, though she didn't smile this time. Her eyes drifted somewhere near my collar, where my shirt clung wet against my skin. Then she blinked, looked away, and took a step back. Silence again, except for the clock. I rubbed my hair dry and said something dumb about traffic. She nodded, but she wasn't really listening. She seemed somewhere else. It was strange, how natural it felt to be there, sitting at her kitchen table with steam rising from our mugs, the smell of rain slipping in through the cracked window. And yet, something underneath it all felt too still, too aware. When it was finally time to leave, she walked me to the door. The rain had softened into a drizzle. I said goodnight. She reached out, maybe to fix the collar of my jacket, maybe to say something, but her hand paused halfway, fingers curling slightly, as if she'd changed her mind. And then she said quietly, "Drive safe, okay?" I nodded, but her tone wasn't casual. It lingered, like a secret left between two people who weren't supposed to share one. Driving home, I kept replaying that pause, that almost touch, in my head. It shouldn't have meant anything, but it did, and I couldn't tell you why. She called a week later, asking if I could help fix the shelves in her study. Her voice sounded hesitant, like she'd rehearsed the question a few times before dialing. "It's just a few loose screws," she said, almost apologetically. "You're good with tools, right?" I said yes before she finished. When I arrived, the rain had been replaced by sunlight that made the air hum with dust. Her house looked smaller in daylight, lived in, slightly cluttered, like time had stopped paying attention somewhere along the way. The study smelled faintly of paper and cedar. She stood by the window, sorting through a stack of books. The sleeves of her blouse were rolled up, showing forearms lightly freckled from age and sunlight. "You really didn't have to come," she murmured, not meeting my eyes. "I wanted to," I said, trying to sound casual. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, just careful, like we were both trying not to touch something fragile. I knelt to tighten the bottom screws, pretending not to watch her reflection in the glass. She moved differently that day, slower, more deliberate. There was a softness to her that hadn't been there before, or maybe I was just noticing it for the first time. At one point, she crouched beside me to hand over a screwdriver. Our shoulders brushed. A small thing, but the air felt heavier after. "Careful," she said quietly. "The shelf's not steady." "Neither am I," I wanted to say. Instead, I nodded and kept working. When the last screw clicked into place, she smiled, the kind of smile that looks like it costs effort. "Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without your help lately." I almost said, "You'd be fine. You always are." But her tone, the faint tremor under it, stopped me. There was something unguarded there, something she didn't mean for me to hear. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes, the kind that comes from holding yourself together too long. I watched her trace her fingers along the shelf's edge, then pull them back quickly, as if aware of being watched. "You should take a break," I said. "You look," she raised an eyebrow. "Old." "No," I said too fast. "Just like you forget to rest." That made her laugh, a soft, real sound. It caught me off guard. She covered her mouth with her hand, like she regretted letting it slip out. "You always notice too much," she said. "Maybe," I replied. "Or maybe you just don't hide as well as you think." That made her go still. Then she turned back to the window, where sunlight caught the side of her face, outlining every quiet line of her life. The strength, the wear, the loneliness. When she finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Don't say things like that." "I didn't mean." "I know," she said, still not turning around. "That's the problem." The room felt smaller after that, the light dimmer. And yet, when she reached past me to place a book on the shelf, her arm brushed mine again. Deliberate this time, or maybe just slow enough to make me wonder. That night, when I closed my eyes, all I could remember was the sound of her laugh, and the way she said, "That's the problem." It started raining again, not the cinematic kind, just steady, gray rain that made the world sound smaller. I'd stopped by to return her measuring tape, a small excuse to see her after days of silence. She was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, hair loose this time. The window was fogged, her reflection blurring into the storm outside. "You're soaked," she said, frowning. "You really need to stop showing up in bad weather." "Maybe the weather just follows me," I said. She almost smiled, almost. That would explain a lot. There was something different about her that night. Her tone lighter, her movements slower, like she was letting herself exist without purpose. She poured 2 cups of coffee without asking if I wanted one. We sat across from each other at the small table, the sound of rain filling what words couldn't. "You ever think about leaving?" I asked suddenly. "This town, I mean." Her eyes flicked up. "Sometimes. But leaving means starting over. And I don't think I have the energy to rebuild another version of myself." She said it like she wasn't supposed to. Then she took a sip of coffee and looked away, pretending it didn't matter. I wanted to ask what she meant. I didn't. The clock ticked too loud again. When her phone rang, she didn't move at first. Then she glanced at the screen, and I saw her shoulders tense. "Is that my ex?" she said quietly, silencing it. "He tends to remember me when he's drunk." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. She pushed the phone away, face unreadable, then laughed softly. That same tired, self-aware laugh. "You shouldn't have to hear about that." "I don't mind," I said. "I do." Her voice broke a little on the word do, and she looked down at her hands. "I don't want you thinking I'm some tragic story." "I don't," I said. "I just think you're—" I stopped. She looked up. "You think I'm what?" The air between us felt too thin. I could see the pulse in her neck, the faint shine of her eyes in the kitchen light. I wanted to say it, that she was impossible to ignore, that every quiet thing she did somehow stayed with me. But I couldn't. The words stayed where they always did, behind my teeth, where they burned. Instead, I reached across the table to move her mug before it spilled. My fingers brushed hers. Warm. Still. She didn't pull away immediately, just stared at our hands, the space that wasn't space anymore. Then her phone buzzed again. She flinched like it had bitten her. "I should take this," she said, standing too quickly. "Of course," I murmured, though she was already walking toward the hallway. I sat there, staring at the empty chair across from me, the faint imprint of her palm on the mug, the sound of her voice muffled behind a door. The rain hit harder against the glass. And when she came back, eyes faintly red but smiling like nothing had happened, I pretended not to notice. But when she said thank you for coming by, and her fingers brushed my shoulder on the way past, that was the moment I almost forgot to breathe. I didn't turn around. If I had, I'm not sure what would have happened. I hadn't planned to see her again that week. But she called, said the study door was jammed, that it wouldn't close properly. Her voice on the phone was calm, polite, but beneath it, something trembled. When I got there, the problem was small, the latch just needed adjusting. It took me less than 5 minutes. Still, neither of us moved to end it. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, not in defense, but as if holding herself together. The house felt too quiet. No rain this time. No ticking clock. Just the kind of silence that feels aware of itself. You didn't have to rush over, she said. You called, I replied. I wanted to. She nodded once, eyes on the floor. You always say that like it's simple. I didn't answer. Because it wasn't. She walked past me, brushing my shoulder lightly. Too lightly to mean anything, too much to mean nothing. Then she stopped by the window, where the afternoon light softened her face, revealing how tired she looked. You know, she said after a while, people talk. About what? About you being here. About me. A faint smile, but her eyes didn't join in. Family has a way of turning silence into stories. I tried to laugh, but it came out uneven. Let them talk. That's easy for you to say. Her voice cracked on the last word. You'll walk away from this someday. I still live here. She turned, finally meeting my gaze. I saw it. The mix of fear and wanting, of someone trying too hard to stay composed. I didn't mean for this to get, she trailed off, searching for a word that didn't exist. Complicated, I offered. Unreal, she whispered. You come here, and it feels like time forgets us. Like none of it matters. And then you leave, and suddenly everything does. I didn't know what to do with my hands, my breath, my heartbeat. You think I don't feel it? I said, quieter than I meant to. Her lips parted slightly, a protest half formed, then swallowed back. She looked at me for a long time, that kind of look that asks and answers the same question in silence. Neither of us moved. The late sunlight dimmed into that blue-gray in-between hour, when rooms feel like they're remembering something. She spoke again, softer now. What are we doing? I didn't have an answer. I wanted to tell her that I didn't mean to care this much, that I tried to draw a line, and it blurred the moment she looked at me like that. But all that came out was a quiet, useless truth. I don't know. She nodded, eyes glistening but dry. Then maybe that's the problem. The distance between us felt impossible and necessary all at once. When I finally turned to leave, she said my name, once, softly, and for a second, I almost looked back. But I didn't, because I knew if I did, neither of us would be able to pretend anymore. It had been a week since that conversation, the one that left words hanging in the air like smoke neither of us could breathe through. I hadn't gone back. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know what to do once I did. Then one evening, she called again. Her voice was calm, but there was something uneven beneath it. Could you help me move some boxes from the attic? Just for a bit. When I got there, the house was darker than usual. Only one lamp was on, throwing a golden circle across the living room floor. She looked smaller in that light. Her hair undone, sweater sleeves pushed up, a faint tremor in her voice when she thanked me for coming. The attic was warmer than I expected, filled with dust and the smell of forgotten years. We worked in silence, stacking boxes, sorting through old books and framed photos. She handled everything carefully, like memory itself might break if she wasn't gentle enough. At some point, I found an envelope tucked between two albums, yellowed, sealed, and faintly smudged with what looked like an old tear mark. Her eyes caught it immediately. Don't, she said, too sharply. Then softer. It's nothing. I held it out. It's got your name on it. She hesitated, then took it from me with both hands. Sat down on a crate, staring at it for a long time before whispering. He wrote this the night before he left. I didn't have to ask who he was. She opened it carefully, the paper crackling like it didn't want to be disturbed. Her eyes moved slowly across the page, expression unreadable until the corner of her mouth trembled, not from sadness, exactly, but from remembering too much. He was my husband, she said finally. We were trying to fix things. And then she stopped, pressing her lips together. He died 2 days later. Car accident. I never told anyone what was in this letter. The attic went so still that I could hear the faint creak of the floorboards under my weight. She folded the letter, her fingers lingering on it like she couldn't quite let it go. He said he wished he'd met me later in life. That maybe then, he wouldn't have taken me for granted. She gave a small, bitter laugh. Strange thing to say, isn't it? To wish for someone later, when later never comes. I didn't know what to say. My throat felt dry, my chest tight. I think that's why I've been keeping you close, she said quietly. Eyes still on the letter. You remind me of who I was before all of this. Before loss started shaping everything I did. Her words hit something in me I wasn't ready to feel. Not pity, not love, but something rawer, harder to name. She looked up then, really looked, and for the first time, there wasn't a wall between us. Just two people standing inside the same ache. Neither of us moved. The light bulb flickered once, and in that trembling second, it felt like everything we'd been avoiding finally had a name. We just didn't dare say it. It was late again, that hour when everything feels softer, when the world runs out of noise. I hadn't planned to come, but she texted, "The rain won't stop tonight." I knew what she meant. When I arrived, the house was dark except for the lamp in the living room. She sat on the couch, her legs folded beneath her, a blanket draped over her shoulders. The air smelled faintly of rain and candle wax. "You didn't have to come," she said, though she didn't sound like she meant it. "You called." I answered like I always did. For a while, neither of us spoke. Just the steady rhythm of rain against glass, the occasional sigh of the old house settling. Then she said quietly, "I read the letter again today." I turned toward her. She was staring at her hands, fingers tracing the pattern of the blanket. I think he was right. About meeting someone later in life. I just never thought I'd still have more to feel. There was no way to respond to that. Not without stepping into something neither of us could undo. She looked up, meeting my eyes. "This, whatever it is between us, it's not supposed to happen." I nodded. "I know. And yet," she whispered, "I don't want it to stop." Something in my chest gave way, not with fireworks, but with quiet recognition. That she'd said the thing we'd both been circling for weeks. That I didn't need to answer it. I moved closer, slowly, carefully. She didn't move away. We sat there, shoulders almost touching. The kind of closeness that feels louder than words. She let out a shaky breath. "I keep thinking I'm too old to feel like this. That I should know better." "You do know better," I said softly. "You just feel anyway." That made her laugh. A broken, beautiful sound. She turned her face away, hiding the wet shimmer in her eyes. "I hate that you see me like this," she murmured. "I don't," I said. "I just see you." Her hand was resting on the couch cushion. Fingers relaxed, but close enough that the space between us felt unbearable. I didn't think. I just let my fingers brush hers. She didn't pull away. The smallest things became enormous. Her breath catching, the warmth of her skin, the way our hands didn't fully hold but didn't separate either. We sat like that for what felt like forever, not speaking, not needing to. Outside, the rain slowed to a whisper. When she finally leaned her head against my shoulder, it wasn't a confession, it was surrender. The quiet kind that comes when both people stop pretending there's a line left to protect. I exhaled slowly, my hand resting lightly over hers. No promises, no declarations, just a shared stillness, a mutual knowing that something had shifted, not into romance, but into truth. She whispered, almost to herself, "We can't go back, can we?" I shook my head. No. And for once, that didn't feel like loss. It felt like peace. It's strange how quietly life rearranges itself after something breaks open. No one ever tells you that endings don't always come with doors slamming or people walking away. Sometimes they just arrive as a softer kind of silence, the kind that lingers, not because something's missing, but because it finally has space to breathe. It's been months since that night. Since the rain, the candlelight, the stillness that felt like understanding. We don't see each other often now, not because of distance, but because we both know how fragile peace can be when you keep touching it. When I do see her, usually in passing, at a family gathering or a store aisle, it's different. Her smile has changed. Not wider, not brighter, just real. Like she's forgiven herself for something she never said out loud. And me? I stopped waiting for things to be clear. Maybe that's what she taught me without meaning to. That love doesn't always fit into the stories we're taught to tell. Sometimes it's just two people who found each other in the wrong season and still managed to bring a little warmth to it. There's a quiet kind of grace in that. I think about her sometimes, the way she used to stir her tea even after the sugar dissolved, the way her laugh sounded like a secret the world had no right to hear. Those details stick. They always do. But they don't ache anymore. What stays isn't the wanting, it's the knowing. That connection, even when it bends under the weight of rules or timing or names, can still be something beautiful. Something that leaves you better, even if it doesn't stay. I learned that love doesn't always have to be forever to be real. Sometimes it's just for a while. But in that while, it teaches you how to see someone clearly, how to listen when they speak softly, how to stay still when silence says everything. She once told me she wished she'd met him, her husband, later in life, when she might have loved him better. I think I understand that now. It's not about timing. It's about readiness. And maybe what we shared wasn't about what could have been, but about reminding each other that it's still possible to feel, to hope, to start again. The night we said goodbye, she smiled, really smiled, and said, "You'll carry this differently one day." She was right. I do. Because love, in whatever form it arrives, doesn't always ask to be held. Sometimes, it just asks to be remembered kindly. So if you've ever had someone who changed you quietly, who walked into your life and left you a little more awake than before, hold that. Not as regret, but as proof you're still capable of feeling something real. And if this story found you tonight, maybe it's because you needed the reminder that love, even the impossible kind, still matters.